got the motor pulled out here. We're getting her cleaned up. What I did last night before I left, I had a bunch of extra bottles of fuel system cleaner, and I soaked it down with it. Fuel system cleaner is good because it doesn't evaporate, and its job is to loosen up gunk, carbon and stuff like that. So I soaked that down with a couple cans of that, and if you don't have that, you could use diesel fuel, I think. You could soak it down with mineral spirits. Anything that's not particularly super flammable is the best thing to use that won't dry up real fast, So got here this morning, pulled it out here, used a can of Easy Off oven cleaner, sprayed the whole thing down, and let it soak 15-20 minutes, and it's really come clean. I'm basically going to get this thing cleaned up best I can, like if I was going to paint it as is, just to save me from getting so greasy when I work on it. I'm going to put valve cover gaskets on it, oil pan gasket, rear main seal, output shaft seal, transmission pan seal, and I believe that's it. Of course, belts and hoses and stuff. I'll take the accessories off. I got to put a seal in the front in the power steering shaft seal. It's leaked for years and years apparently. And I'm going to go with an alternator more than likely, so I'll leave my brackets on, but I'll leave the generator off. Then I might have to redo my brackets when I go with the alternator, but we're not going to worry about that just yet. Get everything rust mortared that's rusty, clean up my valve covers as best I can, and I've got, let me show you what I'm going to paint this thing with. I thought it's a little expensive, but Pour 15 engine enamel, Cadillac, dark blue. It's Pour 15. You know how I am about that stuff and rust. I think this is probably the best bet right here. I'll probably thin this down with something and spray it. There's 2 cans that'll do the whole thing. Of course, I'll mask stuff off, paint other stuff different colors, and these exhaust manifolds are pretty ugly, and there's not too much I can do to them that's going to last very long, but I'll soak them down with rust mort really good, and then paint them with a silver high temp engine rattle can paint or something like that, just to make them look good for a little while. They're just not going to, it's an exhaust manifold. It's part of the deal. Alright, well, let me get her sprayed down again with another can of oven cleaner. Let it soak again, spray it all off, blow all the water best I can, and then I'll soak it down, spray it down real good with lacquer thinner, the whole thing. The whole entire thing. Let that sit for a while. Keep washing it down with it, blow it all off best I can, and that's going to be it. And we'll start taking some stuff apart, and I stay cleaner later. Alright everybody, got her cleaned up. 3-piece transmission. The center section is cast iron, steel, whatever. It's called a Super Hydromatic in Cadillac. Cadillacs called them Super Hydromatic. Oldsmobile and Pontiacs, and they had their own name for the same exact transmission. I don't believe Chevrolet used this transmission. They used power glides, standard shifts, then a 350 turbo. And the other makers didn't go with a 350 turbo or a 400 turbo until later in the 60s. But in 62, this was the 4-speed automatic, no overdrive. First and second gear were real close together. Womp 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 womp. It shifted like, so it's actually a pretty cool transmission. You can still find parts for them. I believe this transmission had been out, and I don't remember why I believe that, but I do. And if you look, it's kind of hard to see with the camera, but that torque converter is super clean. I believe this transmission had been overhauled at some point, and it did always work good. A couple little leaks that I'm going to fix, but we're going to go with it. Well, you can see here, got the rear cap off, put a rear main seal in it. It's of course really hard to see. Now there's no ridge here that I can feel. The crank is in super nice shape. And like I was telling you guys in some other video, like 63,000 miles is what the odometer shows. Now it could be 163, but I don't think so. Looking at the brake pedal and the gas pedal, have no wear on them. Here's our rear main bearing. Really in super nice shape. Almost no wear to it. There's a few, you'll see a few lines in it, and bearings are made soft so that if something gets in there, it'll embed into it rather than scratch a bunch of crap up. I also believe that the rear main seal has been replaced. It's a lip seal. Let's see if I can show you guys. This little lip right here is what seals it. I'd always thought that it was a rope seal originally in these engines, but I don't know. This could be original. This could be original. It doesn't look like a rope seal would work anywhere in this cap. It looks like it would have to be that seal. It goes right there. Okay. So in fact, if this is the original seal, see if I can, I don't know if I can show you guys this or not. The light's kind of funky on the camera. I know it's kind of hard to see, but if you look really close, right on the edge where that seal rides, it has some lines in it that's actually made to hold oil and help seal it up. Well, there's no wear in it. Just on the very edge, just a little bit of wear. I don't know. You guys can't see it. It's the camera. It's a camera thing. So I don't know. Now how I did, and you old timers all know this, with the rear main seal. Of course, the block side looks just like this, okay, except for it's all solid. So you have a bearing, the other half of the main bearing is going this way inside the block around the crank, and of course it's stayed there. I don't want to move this main bearing. I don't want to take it out. I don't want to touch it. I don't want it to get out of place. When I go to torque this back on and squashes it or something, gone goes the motor. We're not going to do that. But the rear main seal, the other half of this, which is right here, goes around the crank and the block. So all you see around the crank is these ends. And what you do, you find you some kind of punch, and this happens to be a drill bit, and the edges of it around the corner of it are round. You know, and I did that because if you hit that crank, you don't want to scratch it. But all you do, catch that edge and you start shoving it in. And of course, it walks itself around out. Grab it with a pair of pliers and slip it right out. So I'll probably get my new one ready to go, lube it up with some lithium grease, push it back in there, and tap it around, and get it where I want with that if I need to. Now the new one should stick out past the block just the tiniest little bit, and it should stick out past the cap just the tiniest little bit. Then what we'll do is we'll put a little RTV on the ends of everything, just a little bit, and then when you torque this down, it shows those ends together and seals everything up. It's meant to do that. Well, like I said, you older guys, or guys that have messed with this stuff, are gonna think I'm stupid for even telling you, but it's not. You know, it's for people who don't know. Old school 2-piece rear main seal, and it makes you wonder how they even seal to start with, but they do. That's the lip, the gasket for the oil pan. So now our oil pan, I was kind of pleased when I saw that. I don't know how well this car has really been taken care of, but there is a little bit of sludge in there. Not a whole lot, for a very old car that's spent a lot of time sitting around, when oil gets old, it starts breaking down, and actually the carbon falls out of it. So the carbon starts to settle down in the pan. So we'll clean all that up. Here's our oil pump, little windage tray thing. So what I'm going to do is put this rear main cap on, put the rear main seal in, put the cap back on, and then I'm going to take the valve covers off, because if there's a little bit here, there could be a little bit in the valve covers, and I want to clean it while it's all apart. I got a phone call. See you guys in a few. Alright, sorry about that. Well, like I was telling you, it's a very thin coat of RTV on the ends of everything. A little bit of lithium grease, just a small skim of it. That'll have that lubricated as soon as it warms up. And if I just gunked it all in there, it might plug up this oil passage, and I don't want to do that. That's the carry oil. But that'll keep it lubed up enough till oil gets to it, and of course as soon as it just warms up a little bit, that stuff will melt. So, and I've got a little bit on the seal as well. So here it goes. Let me get this back on. Alright, it's next day. Excuse me. You know, I'm going to deduct that this engine is in fact a 60-some thousand mile engine that had the oil changed in it pretty well. Now I haven't cleaned that. That is exactly how these rockers looked underneath the valve covers right when I took them off, both sides. Now I wouldn't have been surprised to see a little bit of gunk, you know, in the corners, a little bit in the edges here, and absolutely nothing. Low mileage engine. Got our oil pan cleaned up, soaked the insides of them overnight, got them all cleaned up, lacquer thinner, little sandpaper around our gasket surfaces and all that good stuff. Well, here's our pan gasket. Now what I'm used to in my era of cars is you would have rubber on the ends, then you might have a cork gasket here. That's not the case here. This has cork ends. It's really kind of, you know, I was a little worried about that, but then I realized, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this. You look right there, see that little tang, that little metal tang, you actually catch, push it inside and catch that little tang and then pump, and it stays in there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put those in there on both ends, but first inside that track, weather strip adhesive. Silicone will just make a cork gasket leak. I don't care what anybody says, you're better off using nothing than using silicone. Use weather strip adhesive. Cork is more like a fabric than it is a gasket. It's a gasket, but you know, seal it up with, we'll use our trim adhesive all the way around the whole thing. We'll set up our gasket sides on the pan. We'll do a little bit inside that track and put the ends in there. Then on the very corners where the two pieces come together, I will use a little silicone. That's just going to help any kind of gaps or anything, okay? And I could probably get away with just using the weather strip adhesive. And it's this sort of pan is going to leak. Cork gaskets are meant to seep just a little bit. They swell up, and that's what seals them up. It's just a matter of life. Valve covers, I'll do the same thing. A bead of weather strip adhesive. Get them set up on there. Then another little bead on top of it on the head side. Now if I was worried about taking this motor back apart, I would only do the adhesive on the pan, you know, and on the valve covers. That way you could take it back off and it wouldn't stick, at least not for a little while. Well, let me get back to work, get this on here. We're going to get this motor cleaned up and painted today. Yep, got the pan back on it. The front seal here on the front, I showed you the little nibs it had in it and it would hold it into place, so it was pretty nice. The back seal was a pain. There's no nibs. You can't hardly get, because of the oil pump and the windage tray and all that, you can't really hardly get your hands up in there. On top of that, the gasket was probably, this many pieces too long. So I had to keep cutting it down, and of course I left it proud, a little bit big, so it squishes in there, but it was sticking up almost 1/4 of an inch on both sides if I laid it down in the pan. So I chopped it down just a little bit. Of course there's no nibs to hold it up in there at all. So what you have to do is use that weather strip adhesive, and again, another reason why I like to use it, that weather strip adhesive, it starts to set up, you take your part off, put it back on, take it off, put it back on, and it helps that stuff start getting really sticky. So just hold my fingers up in there, hold it up into place, and it stayed. So again, good black RTV just on the ends of it in the corners that'll fill up any voids or anything like that. And I'll show you on the valve covers, which is basically the same principle. If you, let's see, if you watch that, you know, you can take it back off and it gets real stringy. Just do that a couple times and that thing, it'll stay right there. Now these valve covers are pretty easy because they have the little tabs that hold it into place. Then you got, as long as you got your bolt holes lined up with your bolts, then this gasket won't slip in and cause a big leak. Some small block Chevys don't have these, and it's just the gasket. So if you use a cork or even a rubber gasket, if you use a rubber gasket, you know, you can use RTV. Put it on there, set this upside down on the concrete, something clean, put a little weight on it and just let it set up for a good couple hours, and then that gasket's going to stay in place for you. That's what you would do. Or if you was using cork gasket, you use your weather strip adhesive. So now I'm going to run a small little bead all the way around just to help seal it up on the head. So let's get that on. I'll check back with you. Alright, transmission pan. Now this is a different sort of gasket. This isn't cork. These gaskets are, believe it or not, AutoZone sells them. The transmission has a screen in it, not a filter. If you buy this filter and a gasket kit, it's somewhere between $70 and $125. People just don't make them because, again, that's a screen, not a filter. There was nothing in the bottom of this pan. It was spotless. I'm really tickled about that. I'm a transmission man by trade for the most part, so I'm glad to see that. This is a good transmission. No metal, no nothing. Anyway, I wanted to show you guys a little something that don't know. Valve covers, oil pan, transmission pans, anything with a cork gasket or a gasket type of deal, when someone installs it, you'll have this bolt hole be dimpled inward. And what you want to do is take a dolly, an edge of your bench vise, an edge of your bench, and flatten that out. Just flatten that out, just in that spot. Make sure these are flat, because when you go tighten it up, it's going to do the same thing. So if you put this gasket on without doing that, you tighten this bolt up, what will happen is it'll leak between the holes. More than likely anyway. So this is a rubber gasket. I think it's a rubber gasket that has material in it. You see kind of a texture to it. If I can put my fingernail in it, it's sort of a rubberish maybe it's cork, I don't know, but I'm gonna use RTV on this. Black RTV, I'm using Mopar stuff because I really like it, and I've got tons of it, so it's free to me. But if you can't get this stuff, what you want to use on rubber gaskets and all that stuff, just a real thin coat, is Permatex Black. Okay, this one had clear RTV on it with a rubber type of gasket like this, and so that's another reason why I think this transmission's been overhauled. This housing has clear RTV in it where these two parts go together. I'm not really tickled with that, but I'm pretty sure this is when they first came out with this kind of RTV, so they probably you know, it could have been the mid 80s, early 80s when this transmission was overhauled. That's how long it's probably been, just by using the kind of silicone that they used. So that's just my guess. Anyway, we get this on here and get down the road. See, it says Hydromatic. Not a 400, not a 350, a super Hydromatic, a 4-speed. Well, there we go. Sealed up, cleaned up, painted. Now I sprayed this thing down with lacquer thinner and scrubbed it about 18 times to get it as clean as I could, and it's an engine, so this paint's just not going to last forever. It's probably a lot better job than the factory did. But it's all one color. That's the Cadillac blue. That's 415 engine enamel. I really like that stuff. Boy, it covers, it goes on thick. I reduced it down, I don't know, by about half with lacquer thinner, and I used about half that pint to do this whole engine. I got 2 pints thinking I'd need 2 and didn't. It's going to look nice down inside that car. I've got an output shaft seal to put in yet, but that's okay. I wanted to use the old one as a masking, basically, a plug. Spark plugs are all taped off. I'm going to take them back out, take the tape off of them, start putting them back together. Got a AC compressor bracket, water pump pulley, power steering pulley. Those were blue from the factory. Now the rest of this stuff is various colors, black, silver, whatever. I've got to put a front seal in this power steering pump. Now I'm probably going to take that to work with me next week because I have all the seal drivers and all that stuff there. I can clean it up real nice, you know, in the solvent tank and all that good stuff. I'll clean up the compressor, repaint it, mask off the stickers on there. The starter, and I'll show you a little video on that when I take it apart and clean it up, kind of how you do that. Of course, the generator behind that inspection plate, it's not going to get used. I'm going to put an alternator on this. There's our inspection plate, and I'll probably just clean that up, maybe paint it silver or something like that. And I'm probably going to, on the manifolds, you know, they don't look too bad now. Of course, I soaked this whole motor down overnight with rust mort, so that's kind of how they turned black. You know, I might just go ahead and get me some of that silver high temp manifold paint, header paint, whatever you want to call it, and you know, spray them down. They'll look good for a little while, but not very long. But it'll look cool for, you know, a little while. Anyway, there's that. I'm pretty happy with it. We can actually read the Cadillac letters now. Well, back to the car. Got it jacked up. We're going to pull the front wheels off of it, pull the front brakes off of it, pull the front brake lines off of it. Go down to where, I believe all the way down to the spindles is what we'll be doing. I believe. I'll double check that for the disc brake kit. Then we're going to clean all this up, get it painted 415 shiny glossy black. I kind of like glossy stuff. That's what we're going to go with. So that's going to end this video, and we'll start out with this on the next one. Thanks for watching.